Today I'm going to attempt to win some matches using only a team made up of my wife's favorite Pokemon, which actually might be harder than I initially expected. I say that because the first Pokemon she's giving me is Milcery for some damn reason. I don't know, literally, don't ask. If you're wondering what you can do with the Milcery, the answer is not much. It's got like kind of some special defense and it can use an Eviolite. So I'm going to make it a Kmart brand alchemy with an acid armor stored power set, and honestly, if it's able to set up a bunch, it could be difficult to knock out if someone's not prepared. But also, it'll probably mostly just be here for death fodder. But maybe not. Next up is our number one favorite Pokemon, Raichu. With base 110 speed, it might actually be the fastest thing we'll get, and so I'll take it. I'm going to essentially use it as a potential setup sweeper with Nasty Plot and a Life Orb, and hey, it could be kind of useful. Plus, Surf Raichu is just kind of cool. Her taste is not all that bad because next we have a Zangoose. While I like the guy, it's kind of difficult because base 90 speed doesn't really cut it, but it's strong on the physical side of things, especially when we factor in a Toxic Orb to activate Toxic Boost, and Stab Toxic Boosted Facade hits like a damn truck. We toss in a small chance that we can maybe set up an SD along with coverage and knockoff in close combat, and hey, Zangoose is not bad. So she also really likes Goodra. I think mostly just the shiny form, but I'll absolutely take it because the thing's a great special wall, especially with an Assault Vest, and it can get a bit out of hand with Acid Spray to drop opponent's special defense, and it's got some hard-hitting Draco Meteors paired with some nice coverage. Plus, it's just nice to kind of have a thing to send out there to sponge some attacks. Black Cats are also kind of her thing, and so, of course, Umbreon made it on the list. It's naturally bulky on both sides, and I'm actually going to focus on the physical defense because that's just kind of what the team needs. What the team also kind of needs is a guy to cripple some stuff, and so I'm going to give it all-out support with Toxic and Thunder Wave, which can hopefully open the door to things like the Zangoose. And we can also then maybe pass off a Wish to heal when needed. And the final mon on the most OP team ever will be Galarian Articuno, which I actually didn't really even know that you liked. With some help, it can absolutely get some easy sweeps with that big special attack, and when we have the option to click Agility to become faster than anything, plus set up with Calm Mind, stored power can melt some stuff. Plus, I'm going to give it a weakness policy to try to jumpstart a sweep. And so there you have it. 5 random dudes and some milk. But now it's time to do everything I can to hopefully make her proud and avoid sleeping on the couch. Literally, only my wife would give me a freaky ass mon like Milcery and ask her for her favorite mons. Like, are we sure you didn't mean to say Landorus and Calyrex Shadow Rider? But I'm here with the milk guy, and that's gonna be what I'm working with. I do think overall the team is usable, and she did want me to let you guys know that this is restricted to the mons that are in Scarlet and Violet. So, you know, there's some missing from that, especially Dedenne, since I already have a dedicated video for that as well. But today we're going up against a very scary looking sand team, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, but only if you're into Pokemon nonsense, because that is what we get into over here. And with that, let's go ahead and just jump into the match. All right, so I'm going to start things off by saying this match turns out to be actually kind of insane. It's one of the most ridiculous games I've had in a while, and as they lead off with a Mamoswine, I'm caught with my pants down and my Goodra hanging out, and I feel like this is not a great spot for me to be in. However, nothing really deals with Mamoswine. Now, if they're leading with the Mamo, I figure I'm probably safe to expect them to set up a Stealth Rock here. I can then Draco Meteor, get some big boy damage, except it misses, because of course it does. So that was some damage that I really needed on the Swine. I'm not gonna lie. That would have been pretty nice, but hey, it happens. Draco Meteors miss. I now have to switch into something. Again, I don't really have much that can take an Icicle Crash super easily, but then I actually realized Umbreon is kind of my best bet. This is actually physically defensive Umbreon because for some reason, Sam's favorite team is very specially defensive. So I just built this thing physically. Turns out as I switched the guy in, they actually missed the Icicle Crash. So I'm like, all right, you know, that actually kind of evens things out a little bit. I would have preferred that to miss on Goodra and still get that Draco Meteor, but it is what it is. I get Umbreon in for free. Reason why Umbreon is fine is because while I take some damage from that, I can potentially just wish up and get some health back. They do decide to go for it. I go for a Toxic, and that misses. So I've effectively clicked 3 buttons and missed all of them today. I mean, I missed 2, but I missed the Toxic. Annoying. I would love to get something on this Mamoswine. However, they just switch it out. So I'm like, I'm going to get your ass later, buddy. I don't know what kind of bright powder ass Mamoswine that thing is, but it's pissing me off. Now, I just go for the Toxic again. As they bring in the Rotom, the Toxic misses again. Literally, what the hell's going on here? I will be taking this entire team to the optometrist and then thrown in the garbage later, because what the hell? 2 Toxic misses and a Draco And I haven't gotten anything going here really. So here's the deal. I'm looking at this Rotom thinking for sure it's gonna click Trick. Now, that's just one of the ways that you can really cripple an Umbreon. And a lot of the time Rotom Heats do that. So I'm like, I'm gonna go ahead, switch into the Zangoose. And that's just because I would love to give this thing my Toxic Orb, just to give it a poison, which would be kind of funny. But it turns out as they go for a Will-O-Wisp, that misses. And I don't know. I have absolutely no idea how this is happening. There's been an incredible amount of misses, but actually that's one that I'll take for sure. Because now I get to keep my Toxic Orb and I do get my poison from that. Allows me to now also go for a Facade, outspeed the guy, and take care of it. That is a dead easy bake oven. And after the most incredible series of events, we're actually not doing too bad now. So that feels pretty good. Chalk one down for the Goose. She really does love Zangoose. When we were in Japan at the Pokemon Center, she did buy the main thing she got was the Zangoose plush. And I do fuck with the Zangoose, not gonna lie. Anyway, they can go into a revenge switch, and now they decide to bring in the Hippowdon. Now, this thing is important to set up sand, but it's also a big defensive wall where as a Facade's going to do decent damage to it, but I also realize the value in having Zangoose is pretty nice. So I don't really want to let that happen, or at least go down there, as I imagine they probably just Earthquake here. I can bring in the Umbreon. Again, physically defensive Umbreon, you just cannot kill the guy. I take that nicely. The nickname is the name of our black cat, by the way. Shouts out Zuki. But I get some leftovers. The Sandstorm is annoying to whittle me down a bit, but I'm in a spot where I should be able to get a Toxic on this thing. And considering I don't have great answers to the Hippowdon, a Toxic would be nice. I do connect. Thank God. I was half expecting that Facade to miss, not gonna lie. But I land on the Toxic this time, and that makes me feel a whole lot better about the Hippo. So they actually end up going for the Yawn, which is annoying because Umbreon will fall asleep next turn. I'm feeling like I don't really want to switch the thing out. I would love to get up a Wish here, but then I have to deal with being put to sleep. It would be kind of funny if I did miss that Toxic and then it somehow ended up getting synchronized to sleep. That would be kind of fun, but I am considering leaving the Umbreon into sleep. But then I realized they surely just click an Earthquake here should allow me a free switch into Galarian Articuno, which is kind of one of the main things in terms of a setup sweeper that gives me the best shot at winning this. So I go into the Articuno. I do take the Stealth Rock chip, which is annoying, but as they actually end up switching as well, Articuno is a really situational mon where, especially with weakness policy, if I can just get up one agility in my weakness policy, it's going to be kind of over for a lot of things. So they end up swapping into the Leafeon. Not really the matchup that they were looking for here, but as I'm looking at it, this still feels like a pretty decent opportunity to click an agility. If they knock off, I should still be able to live that. So I go for the agility here with doubled speed. I'm going to be faster than everything they've got. That also boosts up my stored power. They do end up going for the knockoff, but check it out. It knocks me down to 10, and it does activate my weakness policy. However, what is incredibly annoying is the Pocket Sand is going to be able to finish me off. I only live with 10, so now the Sandstorm comes through, has just enough to get right in my eyeballs, and that takes care of Articuno. So, you know, that is a pretty massive kick to the nuts. However, I should have played around that, really, but it was one of those situations where if that worked out for me, I would have easily just been able to sweep with the Kuno. Now, it turns out I got to work around that, and on the revenge switch, I'm going to go right back into Goodra. We're thick, we're gooey, we're yellow, and I don't know what this guy's deal is, but we're going to throw out some Draco Meteors. Now, I'm Assault Vested, doesn't really help me here. They go for the knockoff. It is going to get rid of my Assault Vest, but one thing important, it actually activates Gooey. So this Goodra on this team is honestly pretty helpful in having that Gooey ability, just because now at -1 speed, that's actually a really important drop, meaning now Zangoose will be able to come in and outspeed the Leafeon if that needs to happen. So, well, that's pretty good. I'm looking at this thinking I don't really have a great option to switch, so I'm just going to stay and go for a Flamethrower. Even at minus special attack, it should be fine, but they actually are going to switch out. So I would have loved to allow Zangoose to outspeed that thing, but I have to deal with Leafeon later. And now as I go for the Flamethrower, the Gastrodon is especially not the guy we like to see. We're actually a couple of slimy fellas, not going to lie. I feel like we would be buddies if we weren't, you know, battling against each other. In an alternate universe, we're homies, slimy homies. Now, Gastrodon is a bit annoying as a wall for me because I don't really have a great answer to this thing either. So what I decided to do is I'm just going to click an Acid Spray. Main thing is that's going to go ahead and drop the Spadef harshly, which is great. Going to allow me a much better opportunity to do some damage to the guy. Plus, as they go for the Earth Power, that actually gets a crit, which is kind of annoying because now that puts me in range to where one more will knock me out, especially after the Sandstorm chip. And now I have a decision to make on whether I want to just Acid Spray again or just get some damage with the Draco Meteor. I decided to just go for the damage. The Acid Spray does offset my special attack drop, so I do get it to half, which is honestly really nice. However, they just, of course, go for the Recover. Never met a Gastrodon that's not an asshole, and this one especially is going to get right back to full. The Sandstorm does go away, and as much as I would love for this thing to be the Sand Rush, it's more than likely just going to be Water Absorb still, which is just annoying for Raichu, meaning Raichu cannot touch this Gastrodon, which is important to note. So I just go ahead, drop one more Draco on it for the road. I figured the little bit of extra damage, I guess, is kind of useful. Goodra's kind of used up at this point. I do let them take me out. And now I get to switch in whatever I feel like. So your boy is low on answers for a Gastrodon, not gonna lie. I don't really want to use Zangoose. I can get good chip, but I don't want to take unnecessary damage on the Zangoose. So what I decided is I'm gonna bring in the Milk Boy. It's time to get Milky, which pause, but I'm gonna be able to set up in front of this thing. And honestly, we're basically Alchemy at this point because I am just gonna go ahead, go for an Iron Defense. I know that Gastrodon without Toxic can't really do much to me. Plus, even if it did have access to Toxic, it can't do that because of my ability. But as I go for the Acid Armor, now we're some solidified Milk, which is somehow even grosser. But I get +2 defense, which is great because with Eviolite, my special defense is already great. And now after an Acid Armor, this thing's actually pretty difficult to touch. But also, the Hippowdon tries to go for a Yawn, get Sweet Veiled, and you're about to get milked, buddy. God, pause. Shit. Moral of the story is this Milcery is gonna be hard to take care of. So as I Iron Defense some more, the great news is that since this Hippowdon is already toxic, I'm in a great spot to just proceed to setup. They're probably like, damn, I could not Yawn the guy. That's because nobody knows about the true heat that is Milcery. Maybe Sam was onto something. It remains to be seen. So they decided to switch into Leafeon, which is honestly a welcome switch in because of the fact that this thing already has some pretty good chip. I now get to +6 defense, and I know what their plan is going to be the second they switch this in, is that we've seen this thing with the knockoff, wants to get rid of my Eviolite, which honestly is annoying, but I didn't have no real way around it. So they go for the knockoff here. Doesn't do any damage, but what it does do is gets rid of my Eviolite, which, you know, it sucks. But I can go for a recover to get back to full. So look, I'm at +6 defense, I'm Eviolite-less, so the best way that they can touch me is going to be on the special side. But that's not going to be before Milcery gets to wreak some havoc here, maybe. So at this point, I can go for I'm free to click Stored Power. Not really much else to do. They go for a Leaf Blade in hopes they get a crit. They do not. I eat that up. Stored Power comes through, and it does literally nothing. What the hell was that? But then the Sandstorm Assist comes through, and we do chalk one up for the Milcery. I did not expect this thing to get a kill today. But, you know, sometimes you got to recognize that the Milk has game. That's going to take care of the Leafeon, which is sick. Honestly, best case scenario that I got this thing to do anything, and now we get to see how far we can take the guy. So as they switch into Garchomp here, I'm at first a little bit worried, but then I'm like, you know, I'm still going to be bulky enough to take an attack from the thing. It also cannot Scale Shot, which is actually pretty important because if it gets faster than my Raichu, I have no real way to outspeed it or really touch it. So as they end up going for the Swords Dance, that is scary. I just decide to click a Dazzling Gleam, does more than just a neutral Stored Power. It doesn't really do much, of course, because I am a Milcery, and you know, that sucks. I'm looking at what I've got left here, and it's not looking great. It's also not especially looking great because they go for a Poison Jab. They have the coverage, and that takes care of me, and down goes the Milk, and that, you know, is kind of sad to see. I almost thought we were about to do something crazy there, but no, they have the Poison Jab, takes care of me. The only thing I can do at this point is go Raichu. Now, of course, this thing can live one Surf at this range because my Dazzling Gleam basically healed the guy. I do not have it in range to where I can knock it out. So what I have to do is bust out the Terra Flying and honestly just hope that they click Earthquake. At +2 with the Swords Dance, they could really click anything and knock out Raichu, but my only hope is that they Earthquake here. I go for that Terra Flying. It is now Raichu's birthday, and I go for the Surf here. Now, the thing about it is I had the potential to go for a Nasty Plot, but as I mentioned earlier, they have the Gastrodon. So they do actually end up going for the Earthquake after they take the Surf. And the fact that Gastrodon is in the back is wildly unfortunate. And that's just because of the fact that instead of Volt Switch, I could be running Grass Knot on the guy. But, you know, I don't have it. And that means that I literally cannot touch Gastrodon. I'm hoping that maybe they believe that I might have the Grass Knot and they're reluctant to use it. But as they switch out here, you know, they just go right into the Gastrodon. And I give this thing free Storm Drain. Now, the remainder of this endgame is going to be pretty tough, considering, you know, this Gastrodon is kind of the biggest thing in the way, and the only thing I really have to do against it is going to be really either poison it with Umbreon or allow Zangoose to come in. I don't want Zangoose to take too much damage here. Now, one thing that's really important is that I need to conserve Raichu. It's the only thing that outspeeds that Garchomp in the back, and it's in range for one more Surf to take care of it later on. So as I bring in Umbreon, turns out they go for a Chilling Water, which is nice. You know, throw some water on the kitty, but we ain't even that mad. I'm able to live it, which is kind of sweet. I'm in a spot now where I'm going to be able to outspeed the Gastrodon and we'll be able to do something. I do have the option to set up a wish. I could get just some damage with a foul play. We know that this thing has recover, and it's in probably my best interest to just toxic the guys. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to get a poison on the Gastrodon. Honestly, all I really need is for Zangoose to guarantee that I can knock it out with a boosted facade. But as I go for the toxic here, they are gonna make the smart switch and go back into the freaking Hippo, who's just been freely switching in all day, mind you, because I also don't have any hazards on this team because Sam hates mons with hazards. So I go for the toxic. Thing's already poisoned. That is annoying, but I probably should have clicked the wish. If I could have conserved this Umbreon a bit better, would have been nice. But I had my sights set on getting rid of that Gastrodon. So we've got a Sandy Hippo and a nearly dead Kitty over here. So at this point, I'm looking at this thing thinking, also, one thing that could be bad is that this Hippowdon has the ability to live an attack from Zangoose. So I just decided to go for a foul play. It's free damage. I feel like setting up a wish probably not really going to work out because, you know, Raichu and Zangoose having full health, being able to grab that wish isn't going to be super helpful. So I get some damage there. They do finish me off after the Sandstorm chip from an Ice Fang. And now it's kind of, the door is relatively open, but it's gonna need, there's gonna need to be some stuff that happens. Because if I go Zangoose here, essentially what happens is I'm able to kill it with a facade, but then they just go into Garchomp and outspeed Zangoose and kill it. But if I go Raichu first, I can potentially get off a Surf here. And if they stay in, I'm able to take care of the Hippo. But, you know, they probably know at this point that the Gastrodon is kind of a checkmate. They do end up switching the damn thing out. Back comes the Gastrodon. And I feel like I've done everything I can at this point. There's nothing I can click against this Gas. If I just had that Grass, I literally had Grass Knot on this set. But I felt like Raichu's best use was basically just as a fast Volt Switch pivot. But you know, now would be a damn good time to have just one little blade of grass. But I don't have it. So I can't really afford to hard switch into the Zangoose at this point. Because, you know, if they Chilling Water, then it can be in range to live a facade. They do go for that Chilling Water. Kind of just expected it to take me out. And the only hope I have at this point is one thing. One thing could happen here. And that's that Zangoose has the ability to knock out everything they've got with one facade. The only problem is if the Garchomp has a plus speed nature, if the Garchomp is jolly, we lose the game. But if the Garchomp is adamant, then I can literally outspeed and it's in range to die to a facade. So as I just nasty plot again, just to be like, yeah, I could have grass knotted you, buddy. I could have done it. I didn't have it. Down goes the Raichu, and now I'm down to one mon left. I actually could have gotten a switch into Zangoose there, but then I come in and I have to take some Stealth Rock. So Raichu was essentially taken care of, and now it's one emo fella against the world here. And here's the thing, Gastrodon at full health, I'm kind of worried about, but as I go for the facade here, check this shit out. Zangoose is my goat. That's gonna straight up delete the Gastrodon, which is absolutely some stuff you love to see. And now, just like that, with 60 seconds left on the battle timer, we could win this with just straight up Zangoose. Now, the problem is what they've got left is going to be the Hippowdon, they have the Garchomp, and then they have the Mamoswine in the back, all of which will die to a facade if I can outspeed. There's going to need to be some things that happen. But first of all, look, they go into the Hippo first. Allows me to knock this thing out with a facade, which makes me feel like just maybe Mamoswine, no Ice Shard, and maybe Garchomp is adamant. That would be sick. If it's a Scale Shot, Swords Dance, Garchomp, thing could be adamant, and I could grab a kill from that. Except I'll have to take Sandstorm, Poison, and a Rocky Helmet, and then if Mamoswine has Ice Shard, I'm kind of cooked. But they now bring in the Chomp, who is looking real nice and killable. And as I go for my facade here, hoping that I'm able to outspeed, the battle timer's ticking down. However, they are going to be faster, and Earthquake is going to take care of me. The damn thing was jolly the whole time. And that is going to be the end of the match on that one. So there was definitely some misplays that I had on this one. But I mean, look, I got Milcery to do something. So you know what? I'm kind of happy about it. Still a really fun game. And that was just an interesting match, especially with some crazy miss nonsense in the beginning, which luckily did not carry through for the rest of the match. But that is now going to bring us into the second game, where now I'm coming out with a vengeance. And I'm going to get this team to win. I'm going to do everything I can. And look, if you've stuck around this far into the video, go ahead and do me a big favor. Hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. It only takes you a second. I can tell you haven't clicked it. Go ahead and click that for me. And with that, let's jump into this next match. I will start this one off by saying also this match is a crazy one as well. And things honestly get really wild at the end. So as my opponent leads off with the golem with the beard, I do not like this guy, but I don't know the kind of vibes that guy gives off. I just don't like him. But I'm feeling like Raichu can just click Surf and at least invite them to, if it's Elite Golem, to just click Stealth Rock. That's gonna be pretty nice. But they end up switching into the Snorlax here, who is a special boy who can, you know, take some attacks. Now, Life Orb Chip, I don't do much with a Surf there. And honestly, Snorlax could be a problem. I always assume this thing's going to be some type of curse setup. It could potentially be Belly Drum with like a Citrus Berry. I go for the Volt Switch in hopes that I would knock it down and get rid of its berry. However, it's fine. I do get some decent chip on a Snorlax. All things considered, I'll take that damage. And now, as I can switch into whatever I want, I decide to go Zangoose. So I figure Zangoose can kind of come in here because I was thinking this thing was going to set up. Turns out it goes for a high horsepower, which first of all, you're not fooling me, buddy. I know that you are not a horse. Now, here's the deal about this matchup. I am fully expecting them to hard switch into a Dragapult. If they go Pult here expecting either a Facade or a Close Combat, I'm going to bop that bitch with a knockoff that is going to knock him into next Thursday. However, they actually just end up switching in the Golem. So, you know, that's annoying. I do get a knockoff here. Going to get rid of its leftovers. And that's not necessarily the guy I wanted to really see, but actually, I mean, it's still fine because after that damage especially, I break a potential Sturdy, and now I can just Close Combat that, and that's going to take care of it. So, you know, while I would have loved to get rid of Dragapult, you know, that thing being the biggest threat by far, especially being the fastest mon, I would have loved to take care of it. Now that's going to be a dead Golem at least, so you know we grab something for it, and our emo fella is taking some damage here. So I'm kind of on a little bit of a timer. I do want to conserve the Zangoose because it does have some use here. But as they bring in Hawlucha, I am feeling like at least the one thing is good about this matchup is that they cannot Swords Dance, knowing that I could just stay in and click a Facade. So as long as this thing doesn't set up super crazy, we'll probably be fine. I decided to bring in the Goodra because I would also kind of like this thing to get activate. I'd like this thing to get gooey, moral of the story, but they do click the Swords Dance. They do go for the SD, risky maneuver, and it pays off for them because now at +2 attack, this thing is frightening. And I'm also feeling like as they go for a Close Combat, it's gonna knock me out. They're gonna go ahead and drop their defenses, fully expecting this thing to have the White Herb to get rid of those stat drops and then activate on Burden. But it doesn't end up having that. Plus, since they touched me, they activate Gooey, and now instead of this thing having crazy speed, it's actually at -1 speed. And that is, you know, not what I expected at all. But what's great about that is that since the Gooey did do its thing, I mean, sometimes you gotta use a Goodra just to get one Gooey. It is at -1 speed. As I bring in Raichu, I can now outspeed with the Chew, which would be hilarious, and I can finish it off with a T-Bolt. But they realize the Gooey kind of hoed them, so they do switch out the Hawlucha, unfortunately. And I at least get a big Thunderbolt off on something. As they bring in the Reuniclus, they're kind of out of special sponges here. They can't really go Snorlax to take a couple of these, but I end up getting a crit and a para, which, you know, sometimes Lord Arceus just throws you a bone. We love to see it. I get some big damage on a Reuniclus that I was kind of worried about. And also, I mean, the poison isn't super helpful, but I can just go for a second T-Bolt. That's going to take care of the Gummy Bear. And look at Raichu out here doing some Raichu things, able to take care of a pretty big threat. There is some scary things there in the back, but honestly, not a bad start. And as soon as Raichu starts to feel good, boom, in comes freaking Dragapult, who is going to be able to just outspeed and kill me with literally anything. So I have to make a switch here, and if there's ever a time to bring in the milk, now's pretty much it. If I can somehow bring this thing in on like a Dragon Darts, boy, would that be nice. But I bring in the milk, we're having a nice milky day, and they end up actually clicking Shadow Ball, which first of all does way too much damage and gets a Spadef drop. So I'm like, damn it, all hope is gone for the milk. And you hate to see it. So I feel like I don't really want to give this thing up because I love the milk, and I'm gonna end up switching into the Umbreon, which I probably should have done in the first place, but they actually swap as well, and they end up bringing in Snorlax. I could have probably just gotten away with leaving in the milk, but as soon as I get a special defense drop, it's not super ideal for the guy. It's tough that I don't get Calm Mind on that freaking thing. Only Alchemy gets that. But I go into the Umbreon here, and I have an interesting matchup to where I can click Toxic on a Snorlax. However, that could be bad if it's immunity. Also could be bad if it's rest, but damn it, I'm clicking it anyway. So I go for that Toxic, and it actually is not immunity, which is great, but it has a Lumberry. So I mean, that's another workaround. It does get rid of that poison, but actually, as they go for the rest, they were counting on that being able to wake it up. But I'm like, no, you will be sleepy. And I've got a couple of turns where this thing is going to stay asleep. I might be able to try to get something going. So I figure at this point, I would love to get this Umbreon out of here, but also have the idea that I can click Wish here. And then as I can bring in potentially Zangoose, I can get that fella back to full HP, pass a Wish around. Umbreon's just a helpful guy. So I go for that Wish. The thing does stay asleep. It has one more turn of guaranteed rest sleep. So as I bring back in Zangoose, I especially threaten this thing knowing that they've seen the close combat that I used on the Golem at least. So I come in, we're having a nice little time. The buddy is having nap time over there, stays asleep. And me with my big old fluffy tail gets back to full HP, which is you know, better than you can expect, at least for Zangoose to get knocked down and then all the way back up. That's pretty nice. I'm kind of at this point afraid that they're going to go into the Dragapult, but they've also seen the knockoff play. I either go for the Facade or the close combat, and I opt for the close combat here, which actually, you know, is going to turn out to be not that great of an idea, because as they end up switching into freaking Hawlucha, I felt a Facade would have just deleted this thing, and now instead, it's able to take a close combat pretty nicely, and I'm now in danger to just getting close combated myself, especially since this thing is just faster. And I let the Zangoose down, I'm not gonna lie. I'm looking at this thing feeling like, last time they Swords Danced in front of me, maybe they're gonna do that again this time. I'm just gonna stay in Facade. Turns out, by some grace of God, Buddy's not running max speed on the Hawlucha, and I actually outspeed the guy. I don't know what the hell that Hawlucha's cooking, but it's gonna be cooking in the afterlife because that thing is dead as hell. Down goes the Hawlucha, and that makes me feel pretty good. That's a scary threat out of the way, and hell yeah, Zangoose. I felt like I was in a bad spot, but now we're feeling pretty good, and the game is about to get crazy because as they now bring in Whimsicott, I'm not exactly sure what this thing wants to do, but what it's going to do is just knock me out. It outspeeds, goes for that Moonblast that is going to take care of me, and you know, damn it. So I have a squad of Mons left, and I'm feeling like I could potentially go Milcery here, but I'm feeling like one thing I can do to open the door for a win here is if I go Galarian Articuno, this probably baits in Snorlax. Special Defensive Wall wants to come in on an Articuno. However, if I can Agility, I can start to get some stat boosts, and then Stored Power will stack up, and I'll be feeling pretty good. So I go for that Agility. It turns out they end up staying in, and they click Trick Room, which is diabolical. Not only because now right after I Agility, slow things are nice, but also this thing can now Prankster Encore me into that Agility. I'm going to be stuck, and that is not going to be great. So I figure I can nip this in the bud before it gets a little out of hand, and I decide to switch into the Umbreon. Is that risky against a Fairy type? No, because I'm feeling like they surely click Encore here. But they click Moonblast, and I could have just I could have just clicked Calm Mind with Articuno, but instead now I switch Dark type in on a Moonblast, and the reason why this is still a relatively safe play is because I can go for the Terra Poison, I can then get up a Wish, and then I'll be fine. For whatever reason, they switch out the Whimsicott. I have no idea what the hell's going on, but they bring back in the Snorlax, probably because they want to take advantage of this Snorlax under Trick Room. But now I'm out here going for a Terra Poison, which feels like for no damn reason. It was to leave that Moonblast, but it's fine. And I'm also feeling like if this thing is a Trick Room squad, it probably is going to be a Belly Drum Snorlax, which could be bad because this thing is going to wake up here, and I could be in danger at least a little bit. But the Trick Room is going to make things really interesting in terms of, you know, turn management here. So I go for that Wish there. It's going to go ahead next turn, heal something up, and I'm looking at this Snorlax feeling like I could stay in and click a Foul Play if they want a Belly Drum. Which it seems likely, but I also am kind of living in danger of a high horsepower here, so I decide to switch into the Articuno expecting the horsepower, but he is going to wake up, and they do go for the Belly Drum, so the Foul Play would have been quite nice. And now, at least, Snorlax, it really only has one turn to being scary, because the Trick Room only has one turn left, so looking at this, I'm about to get body slammed into next Tuesday, so I decide to just switch into the Milcery. I always want to call this thing Milcery. I don't know, it's Milcery, which seems weird. They go for that body slam, and that is some spoiled milk. That is going to take care of me. However, since the Trick Room is going to wear off, now everything I have is going to be faster than the Snorlax. It's at half health, but the best thing I can do is actually go Umbreon, who's not generally a guy who outspeeds things, but I can outspeed a Snorlax, and since Fella is at +6 attack, a Foul Play is just going to destroy it. So that is a dead Snorlax. Umbreon is out here Terra Poisoned, but we grab a kill, and now it comes down to they've got 2 Mons left. So the deal is they have the full health Dragapult, and they have a Whimsicott in the back. Also important to note, they do still have their Terra, so this could honestly be anybody's game. Now, on the Revenge, they decide to go into the Dragapult, making me feel like maybe I have a shot to actually take an attack here, and a Thunder Wave guarantees that then I'll be able to take care of it in outspeed. So as I go for the Thunder Wave in hopes that I'm able to live an attack here, especially if it's going to be a physical attacking one, they actually end up going for their Terra. They're going to go Terra Fire, which feels like they probably do that defensively to live a Foul Play. But it turns out as they go for a Flamethrower, now Terra Boosted Flamethrower, I feel like Umbreon might have a shot, but they end up getting a critical hit that knocks me out. And it was confirmed after damage calc. This thing, I would have been able to live that without a crit. absolutely busting my balls. I'm just going to pretend like I missed the Thunder Wave and have to deal with it. So here's the situation, however, is that, first of all, if that thing is Specs, it would have been able to kill the Umbreon, but more importantly, it means it's locked into a Flamethrower here if that's the case. I can go for an Agility, even if it's not Specs. Not only do I live a Shadow Ball, but it actually will also give me my weakness policy. That plus an Agility, I can then sweep the game with Articuno, and that is the plan, except for the fact that they end up switching. Leads me to believe maybe that thing was Choice Specs, and as they bring in the Whimsicott, now things are getting extra crazy because we know this thing has Trick Room. I've now Agility to, again, in front of a Trick Room user potentially, and as I go for the Air Slash here, I'm able to outspeed, but it's Focus Sash. Since I don't have any damn hazards up, its Sash remains intact, and they also take this opportunity to go for a Trick Room. Now for the next 5 turns, shit is about to get weird and confusing. Because of the fact that now Trick Room is up, I have an Agility. This thing's gonna go first, even because of the fact that it's naturally fast, but I have an Agility. So I decided to save the Articuno, and I kind of have a plan, is that I can actually use this Trick Room for my own benefit, potentially. Now, I bring in Raichu, knowing that I'd probably just die, but if not, I can outspeed under Trick Room. Turns out they go for the Memento, gonna drop my offenses by 2, while just killing themselves in the process. And now it is us versus a Dragapult with a Trick Room up. So, you know what, this actually might not end up being that bad, because as they bring in Fire-type Dragapult, I can now use the Trick Room to be able to outspeed the Pult, and I have a super effective Surf on it. While it's not gonna be able to grab a kill, it's going to be able to do just enough damage to where then I feel like Articuno should be able to finish the job. So I drown that Fire Ass, it is able to live it, however then they go for the Shadow Ball. That's going to knock out the Raichu. We've gotten ourselves now into a 1v1 situation where it's Articuno versus a Dragapult with the Trick Room up. I'm feeling like I have the win kind of in the bag no matter what, because I can live a Shadow Ball as long as it's not Specs, but since the Trick Room is up, I might as well use it instead of going for anything crazy. I'm just gonna click an Air Slash. It should be enough to knock it out. It might not, but I go for the Air Slash. It is gonna be able to finish it off with a crit, which may have mattered. I'm actually not entirely sure. If that thing was Spec Shadow Ball, I would have died to that, and that crit could have just saved me. Regardless, crazy ass ending to just an absolutely ridiculous game. And this team was, not gonna lie, kind of fun to use. Had a fun time with it, and hell yeah.